I speak of an effortless path that happens when you have this realization of the non-existence of the separate self in us. So in this video, I want to cover what this actually means and why is it that is effortless, even though it feels like you're doing an effort still as a person to do this. First, we need to understand that anybody who is on this path is a spiritual seeker, which means they are seeking. So the question is, what is it that we are seeking? If we understand this question, if we understand where this seeking is leading us, where do we want to go, what do we want to find, then we can create a pathway to which we're going to use and arrive at what we want. So what do we want? What do we seek? In simple terms, we seek peace. No matter what question or line of questions we create to answer the question, what are we seeking? We seek peace and happiness. And so there are many ways in which we do this, and we can fan out all the possibilities how we seek peace and happiness. And we will see that all of them tend to have a sort of incompleteness to it, a sense of frustration in the end, that it's not really what we're looking for, because we're always looking in objective experience, even in spiritual practices. So this is all to say that there is a pathway, which we call the direct path, in which we go straight into what we're seeking. And this means that right away we can go into that which we are looking for. And just like seeking can be defined in many ways, and yet there is no specific thing that you seek that is going to give you that peace and happiness, there's another question that comes up, which is, who am I? That doesn't produce a satisfactory answer. If we pair the two, then what I know is that what I'm seeking is myself. Who am I really? And this is the direct path. We go straight into the question that matters, which is who you are. So if we move in this direction, we're going to find out who we truly are, or actually that we are no particular thing. We are that which contains everything. And this is the big realization that there was never a separate self, that there only is an awareness of experience. It is only when we get mixed up with the experience that we feel that we are dependent upon that particular situation, event, character, title, memories, and so on, that makes up the experience. So this realization is not one that happens at a mind level. And so we need to drop everything that the mind has as a form of conceptualization and trying to live it, because the mind can only work through memory. And the only fruit of this seeking is nothingness, or that which contains everything. And in this realization, there is what we call meditation. In other words, meditation is just a byproduct of this realization. So just to recap this past couple of minutes, the direct path is the pathway that goes straight into the question that matters, which is, who am I? And answers the question of what is reality, and at the same time, where is the peace that I look for and the happiness that comes out of that peace. And that is what we call self-inquiry. We use this method of asking, who am I? I'm inquiring into that which I call I, or self. What is it? And I look into it, and even though I can't find anything, it is, or I am. So what does it feel to be? If you want to pause the video at this point and really get with this question, it'll help you out. And if you haven't done self-inquiry, that's okay. Just follow the question, who am I? And look for any satisfactory answer. Answers will come up, and that's just going to be a thought. And yet you are aware of that thought. So stay with yourself. Stay with that awareness that doesn't require a thought to be. Notice that. Notice that there is no requirement for being. And yet being is required to have a thought. Notice that, and then stay with the answer, which is not conceptual. It doesn't depend on a thought. In other words, it is beyond the mind, and it's always present. It's called you or I. Stay with that and obviate everything else. And if it comes very convincing, just notice that it's only temporary. It goes away. It subsides, and you remain. So this is the direct path to self-realization. A direct way of inquiring into our nature to know who we are. And begin to notice that which is inherent in being, which initially it feels like calm being, peaceful being, still being, depending on nothing, and yet containing everything that arises and subsides. Now, how does this relate to what I call an effortless path of living life? I sometimes use the word spontaneous life or the spontaneous path, because we have just corrected the one small mistake that we have made, which is the belief that I am this character made out of stories in my mind, and that needs to have this referential mental image to relate to the world. In other words, I depend on what the voice in my head tells me of myself so I can relate to the world. And here we're obviating that because we find it non-existent. This separate self, this image, doesn't exist. It's just an appearance in me. And so what seems like an effort at this point is to stop identifying with the character in the mind. That's the only thing that feels like an effort. But actually, that is an extra effort that we do all the time. We're trying to justify our behaviors based on memories, because we're trying to maintain a character. We're trying to maintain an image of ourselves. So that is an effort. Actually, in our practice, which is a non-practice, it is a return of that effort. I sometimes say return attention to its source and allow things to be. And this allowing then permits awareness to be more discerning of the parts, the elements, the patterns in our mind that makes us behave in unconscious ways, or that prevent ways for us to behave consciously in what we call a helpful way to others and to ourselves. So this is the beginning stages, I would say, of the effortless path, which is returning. It's waking up from so many dreams that we have constantly, whether we are meditating or we're driving or talking to people or interacting with the world. There is a constant relationship with the thinking mind. And so the first step that we really focus on in the effortless path is to realize how much of an effort we're putting into our thoughts, to identify with them and just simply return the attention to source, which relaxes the focus of attention into the image that we have created and continue to perpetuate as ourselves. In other words, we are weakening the ego at this point, to the extent of excluding every single thought from our identity and staying with what is. This begins to bring a calm sensation daily in every one of us, and it begins to set up the stage for the next work that happens or unfolds effortlessly as we disidentify with the image. So this is the next step of the effortless path, which is an inevitable process from returning our identity to where it belongs. And that's what we call, in so many ways, healing, liberation, alignment, balance, and so on. So many things like inner child work, shadow work, all of these modalities are explaining the same aspect of this effortless path that is disidentifying with thoughts. What do you think will happen? Obviously, all the stories that used to be unavoidably attached to the character will lose its strength over you. They will lose their grip on your identity because it's no longer there. By returning identity where it belongs, healing happens spontaneously. And this is why many, many people report on this path that there are things that they never worked on directly. They never had to do anything about one particular thing that used to bother them so much, that used to bring them anxiety, depression, sadness, disquietness, or disquietude within themselves. And suddenly, when it comes up again, the situation, the stimulus, the person, it's non-existent. And they say, I don't know how this happened. And I can attest to that. So many things that return to yourself that you used to be reactive to, suddenly they're no longer there. There's no reactivity. And this is the purging or purification process of the mind. It's only by doing the one practice, which is a non-practice, a non-effort practice of relaxing attention to its source, returning to yourself. Many ways we use this to incentivize the same recognition, the same awakening, the same coming out of the character, weakening the ego or the separate self, allowing healing to happen. And then the last aspect that is, again, inevitable in all of us that will happen is this surge of creativity, of inspiration, of sharing, of wanting to do something. And so we focus on this in the last stages of this effortless path because we want to make sure that this is something that is being noticed, that is being discerned. I'll tell you why this happens. If your mind has been recirculating so many characters, so many voices, so many narratives over and over again, it stands to reason that daily we are always repeating the same novella, the same stories, right? So there's no room for much else. And whenever something else comes in, there seems to be very little room. But now things are dissolving. These narratives are becoming irrelevant. Plus, new narratives based on a separate self are not possible anymore because you are no longer identifying with your thoughts and the stories and memory. You're actually getting rid of them. You are actually dissolving them from the lens that filters reality to you. And as you do this, there's going to be room for something. What else do you think is going to come up if not your spontaneous personality, your true self, as we call it? And so your purpose, your service, your dharma, all these words refer to the same thing again, that which you want to do, without reference to anything else, just because you want to do it. And it's a natural feeling that everybody has, everybody enjoys. And as we allow this recognition to happen, the one practice that is a non-practice, which is through self-inquiry, remember who you are constantly, then everything unfolds. And your life becomes peaceful, meaningful, purposeful. That is what everybody is seeking. It doesn't matter if it's an objective reality to the failure of it, because there are no objects or activities, people that will ever give us that peace. It is always us. It's always been within us. We have just been ignoring it. So this is the time in which we return to the source of peace and happiness, which we haphazardly call I, carelessly call I, and explore it, and then allow this recognition to be integrated in our lives effortlessly. There is no effort required. The only effort that seems to be required is the stopping of the tendency to just relax. It's almost like we have been very active and we're being told to chill out, calm down, relax, sit down. Literally sit with yourself. And this is what allows everything to unfold effortlessly. If you enjoyed this video and want to join our free community so you can get deeper into the practice of the direct path, then this is our free community. I want to give you a short tour so you can see that you can join here. There's going to be a button here that says join group. And then you're going to have access to our community where we're always posting, asking questions, and just getting involved with this method. And you'll have access to the classroom on these two courses, which are open and free for you to check it out and just go through the methodology, some other videos, meditation, guided meditation. And lastly, there is the calendar of events in which every Thursday, actually Fridays in English, is when I do my guided meditation and Q&As open to everybody. So here's a free community for you to get involved, some free resources to get deeper into this path. And of course, if you need guidance, if you feel like you need more of a one-on-one guidance, you can always reach out to me and book a one-on-one call so we can talk about where you feel you're at, what do you feel you need or is missing, and we can see how this effortless path can be implemented in you via the direct path, which is the beautiful, simple recognition of who you are. Again, I hope this video was helpful, that you join the community so you can get the free resources that are going to get you started on this. And again, any questions, of course, you'll find it there in the community, and I'll be happy to answer it. I'll see you soon.